We have got a good one for you. You are listening to our boys basketball semi-state preview show with Kyle Neddenriep of the Indianapolis Star and Tipton Tribune and Elwood call leader sports editor Michelle Garmon.
You're listening to the Central Indiana Sports Report with your host, Greg Mengelt.
Welcome to the Central Indiana Sports Report. Kyle Neddenriep and Michelle Garmon here to talk a little semi-state basketball. Kyle, we can just kind of make this make this podcast go in any direction you guys want, but I want to start with this. As a reporter in Jeffersonville for the last 20 years, I thought that Fishers and Jeffersonville were 1A and 1B, but I think Fishers has hit another level.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. Although I think if they play each other, it won't be a blowout or anything. I wouldn't think. I think that's probably the best team to match up with Fishers. I would be surprised if Fishers lost this weekend. I'd be probably less surprised if Jeffersonville lost, just because the competition's better at Newcastle. But yeah, I think Fishers has won 41 games in a row, so they've definitely put themselves on another level from everybody else.
Kyle, tell us a little bit about Fishers. I know they won the 41 straight games, but I know, and they're a very deep team, but they're also kind of young this year. Was this expected for them to go through the season undefeated?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think they lost off last year's state championship team, and to be honest with you, I'm not sure people saw last year coming because Jalen Harrelson was such a huge part of their team the year before that. He'd been as a freshman and sophomore had been so good. And he was such a good team player. He handled the ball a lot. He had the ball in his hands a lot, but he was a really good point guard. He could score, he could pass. So then going into last year, I don't know, even though they had a lot of talent, there was a lot of things you didn't know about them. You didn't know how good Keenan Garner was going to be, who's a player for IU Indy now, a key player for him. Taden Metzger, you knew he was a really good shooter. But there were some things that, we didn't know, like Jason Gardner Jr. and Cooper Zachary coming in as freshmen, even if they would play any kind of role as varsity players. So, John Anthony Hall, we knew that they'd be good, but I think last year was a surprise. And going into this year, I think, the target was certainly on their back. They had enough coming back to where you'd feel like, they're probably the favorite going in, but I don't expect anybody ever to go undefeated. That's sort of, especially against the schedule they play. I figured they would slip up somewhere along the way. But then I remember talking to John Anthony Hall towards the end of the season, and he's like, well, it's not going to do us any good to lose now, so we might as well we might as well finish it off and go undefeated. So, but yeah, I mean, I think they're a team that, and really, they don't play. They're basically playing 7 guys now. They're not. It's not like they. I think there's a little bit of misconception, like they're playing 10 or 12 guys every game. They do that because a lot of the games are ahead by so much, but they're kind of a 7-man rotation for the most part, depending on foul situations. And those 7 guys all are really good players, especially 6 of them who can all score, 20 on a given night. So
they've had at least 6 guys lead the team in scoring in a game.
Yeah, I mean, Nathan Baker did last week. He's I think their lowest scoring player at 7.7, but he went out and had led them in scoring against Harrison, and he's done that before. If you leave him open, he's 6'6", but he can drill shots from the perimeter. So any of those guys, Millen McCartney is another guy who kind of gets overlooked sometimes, but he can really shoot the ball, and you can't the neat thing about that team, and John Anthony Hall doesn't shoot a ton of threes, but other than that, they all can shoot threes. And John Anthony Hall did in the sectional. He came down and hit one early in the game against, I think it was Westfield, and it's like, oh man, if he's making threes, they're really going to be unstoppable. So, But yeah, and I think the thing also too that gets lost is they're so good defensively. They can guard. They get out and guard you. Hall plays more like he's 6'6" than he's 6'1". He's just such a good jumper, and so his height is actually misleading. But yeah, they've got it all. I mean, I know some people will be like, well, they're not as good as the LN teams and who knows, they maybe talent wise they're not, but they are a team that really fits in this current model of basketball. They've got about everything.
And I know they're down south, and I know Greg's a little bit more familiar, but I mean, Jeffersonville, for having gone through the injuries and everything that they have, Sharon's done a nice job of keeping them together and focused. And would you say that they're probably started hitting their stride? They're hitting their stride at the right time?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I've seen them a lot. For being farther away, I feel like I'm pretty familiar with their team. Also in the summer, when they played at the Charlie Hughes in June, I mean, they were kind of the story of that tournament that weekend. I mean, they came out and won every game, and even though they had a good run there in the Semistate, they beat LN. Probably should have beat Ben Davis and played in the state finals last year. I mean, they would probably feel that way. They led that game by 5 pretty late there, and kind of Ben Davis was that. They just had that winning pedigree, and they were able to win that game. But so we knew they were good, and most of those guys were juniors. But then in June at the Charlie Hughes, like, whoa, they are legit. And then Singleton got hurt. Trey Singleton, their main guy there, unfortunately in a workout. I think Virginia was in to watch him, and he injured his foot, so he missed pretty good chunk of the start of the season. At the Hall of Fame, he came in this, I think it was the second half of the first game they played. He actually played in that game, and then didn't play the second game because they ended up losing, and it was just kind of like, well, we need to do what's best for him. But then he came back shortly, like probably 2 weeks later. He was basically playing full minutes, and so now, yeah, you're seeing a fully formed Jeffersonville team. I know PJ Douglas has battled an injury as well, but between Singleton, Cooper, Michael Cooper, and PJ Douglas, I mean, that trio is about as good of a trio as you'll find anywhere, including Fishers. So, no one at this point, no one's sleeping on Jefferson. I mean, everybody knows how good they are. Whether they can get through and win is another question. I mean, Mount Vernon is on an absolute tear right now, and that's going to be a really tough game. I think that could be the best game of the day. We'll see how it plays out, but it's a tough road, but they've been there before, so I kind of give them the advantage because they have been there, and they have Singleton, who nobody else has.
That's true.
Now, tell me, because we know Luke Ertle's Mount Vernon's on a tear, and he's leading that charge. Who else has really stepped up their play for Mount Vernon to help them get to this point?
Yeah, I mean, it's been kind of a mix of I mean, Luke he's the maestro. He I was at the Greenfield Central championship game at Muncie Fieldhouse, and you talk about a performance of a lifetime. And Braylon Mullins, it was like it was one of the better duels I've ever seen. Mullins had 38, Ertl had 36, and had 10 rebounds and 8 assists. I mean, he was phenomenal.
Every time I see somebody refer to Braylon Mullins as an Mr. Basketball candidate, I'm always thinking, well, who are the other candidates? Because he is not a candidate. He is the guy.
He's the guy. If you've seen him a lot, I mean, and I know there's, and I don't want to short any, Singleton, if he would have had a full season, I think, may have been a guy who had a shot. But missing that early part, I think, kind of hurt his chances. And, Xavier Robinson is also a great player.
Great player.
North.
Yep.
But it's just a different, it's a different level, I would say, that Braylon's been playing on this year. And efficiently, too. I mean, his efficiency numbers are incredible. So, but yeah. But
plus, his top competition left their high school, so.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, yeah, Jalen Harrelson and Trent Sisley would have been right there as well. But yeah, Ertl's been playing on a different level. I went out this week and talked to him, and have a story out this morning. People compare him to Braden Smith a lot, obviously, because he's going to be the guy, you would anticipate to come in and I don't know what he'll do as a freshman, but eventually be the guy to be the point guard at Purdue. And, there are definitely different things about their games. Luke, and I covered his brother, Michael, who played at Mount Vernon probably about 8 years ago. I think 2017 was his senior year. He's an Indiana All-Star, really good player. Went to Louisiana, Monroe, then played at UAB, and now he's in Poland playing. But
wow,
very similar. They're very similar players. Even the way they walk, the way they, first time I saw Luke, Michael was sitting there. I was like, "You guys were exact replica." He's like a replica of you. And Michael brought up but he said, hey, he's a better point guard than I was. He understands how to play the game better than I did, and I think that's probably true. Mike's probably being a little bit humble there, but I do see the similarities I see with Braden are more of a competitive, like I'm going to find motivation in anything and apply it to whatever's right in front of me, and that's what Braden was. He is the king of that.
Yes, he is.
He's the 100 out of 100 on that scale, and I see a lot of those similarities with Luke. I think the Braylon Mullins game, he found motivation in that. I think in every little thing, like even if it's not true, like he'll find little things, little nuggets to motivate him. And I definitely Braden Smith was that way. I see that a lot with Luke. But to your question, Tyler Davis is a 6'6" senior. Who stepped his game up for sure. He's a very athletic big for Mount Vernon. He's been really good here lately, including last week in the regional against Brownsburg. Max Weiss also, he's about 6'6", sophomore, and I think he's got a chance to be a Division I player eventually. He gives them some size. He's not very big, but he's skilled. He's not very big as far as strength goes yet, but he's a very skilled player. And then they've got a lot of really good pieces. Tanner Teschendorf's a senior who can do a lot of things for him. Aiden Doherty is a kid who I know Michelle. His dad Travis coached at Tipton and other places. He really good kid, good defensive player. Elijah Parra, probably their best perimeter shooter. So there's a lot of good pieces to go with Luke, and that's why I think they have a chance to win tomorrow, because it's not, you might look at it as a one-man show, but it's not that at all. Luke will give the ball up, and those guys will hurt you. So I think anybody thinking this is like a one-man band, I'm sure Sharon Wilkerson doesn't think that, but just in case anybody does, I think they're wrong about that.
Tell me, do you think Terre Haute North, do they have enough to be able to compete with Lawrence North for 32 minutes?
I tend to doubt it, but at this point in the year, and Todd Wolfley is one of the best coaches in the state, in my opinion, and he'll have his team ready to go there for Terre Haute North. They're always good. They're always play at their pace. They have actually pretty good size. When you look at their team, and their guards can shoot it some. So I don't think this will be like I'm sure this won't be like a 30 to 40 point blowout like LN did to Mooresville last week, but can they hang with LN? The thing with LN sometimes is they don't shoot it great from the perimeter, and that's not always the case. They did against Greenfield Central. They just made everything, and they buried Greenfield Central. For the course of the season, they haven't shot it great from three. So that's my one question. In a one-game scenario, they may come out and shoot the lights out and put Terre Haute North away. But
it's a little weird that we haven't talked about Lawrence North yet, because they're ranked 10th or whatever, but everybody knows that they're one of the teams that's talented enough to win a state championship if they play well.
Yeah, I would put them third, honestly. When you look at the, probably Fishers, Jeff, LN, Mount Vernon's right there, but LN has the pieces, because it's not even about just Robinson who kind of makes them go, but I'd say this is the most connected LN team I've seen in a while. They're balanced. Kai McGrew is a beast inside. He's about 6'8". He is playing his best basketball right now. He's if he gets the ball down low, you're not going to stop him. And he's got some skill to him. And then to me, the X factors, Brendan Miller, who's 6'7", and he can do a ton of different things, including score inside. And they're playing more inside out than they have in the past, and getting the ball to those guys more at the high and low post. And that has worked for them really well. So, not many teams have. Now Jeffersonville, if they run into them in the night game, they'll be more equipped to slow them down. Terre Haute North has got good size, but they're pretty, from what I've seen on video, they're a little bit leaner than the LN guys are. So we'll see if LN can overpower them. But then I really like, they've got Cam Webster, their point guard, is playing really well, and Jamar Thomas, who's about 6'5", senior, who can guard or junior, who can guard and score some. So just a lot of really good pieces for LN, and like I said, I think they're finding joy in playing for each other, which is something they've really been, Coach Giffen there's really been harping on them about it in the last couple of years, and I think it's coming to fruition now. So I expect them to play. I think they would be really disappointed if they don't make it to Saturday night and play either Jeff or Mount Vernon. And I would give them a good shot to win that game, to be honest with you. If they're playing their best, I think they could win that game.
Well, and how much does them playing the first game, especially if that second game is really tight, how much does Lawrence North playing the first game give them an advantage in the night game?
Yeah, I mean, you would think a lot. They probably leave at halftime and watch the rest, wherever they're going, or they may not stay for any of it. I don't even know, but I'm sure the coaches will, and the team will probably go back to the hotel. So you're able to rest and get out of there, and have a good. And they don't have to travel far. It's a pretty easy from that side of town. It's a pretty easy drive for them and Mount Vernon. So it's a definite advantage. That's why I thought this would be at Southport, because Terre Haute North is, on that side of the state, and Jeff is, got to come from the southern part. But I get the impression, I think the ISJ just wants the 4A to be at Newcastle, which makes sense.
It does.
Yeah, I think. Just think of how many more seats does Newcastle have than Southport, to where it becomes a sold out venue. I mean, that's just that much more revenue.
Right. It's probably 2,000. Roughly.
Yeah.
So
Southport's not small.
No, and it'll be packed. I mean, that 3A semi-state at Southport's going to be fantastic. But yeah, I think it's definitely an advantage. I think to play the early game. Obviously if you lose it, who cares? But if you win, you're able to sit around and kind of rest and wait for the winner of the other game. So yeah, LN, I think by this draw, they definitely have the best draw of the bunch.
How do you see? Then you tell us how you see the 3A at the 3A semi-state. We'll start at Southport since it's down there in your area, and I know New Pal's in there, and
it's going to be a good one.
It will.
Yeah, New Pal and Brownstown are is the first game, and both these games are fantastic. All four of these teams are top 8 in the state, and I think you could probably say. It wouldn't. Maybe Princeton would be a little bit of a surprise, but I don't think anybody would be that much of a surprise to win this thing. New Pal's been building for this for the last 3 years. They were 4A sectional champ the last 2 years, and then moved down to 3A with all of their guys back basically. So super, it's just a very skilled team. Julius Gizzy's kind of the one who makes them go 26 points a game. But Moses Haynes, their point guard, he's going to play at IU Kokomo. He's 12 points a game and over 7 assists. And then Ben Slagley, also a senior who's been playing varsity basketball for 4 years as well, is a major contributor for them. So those three, and then they've got some other good pieces around them. Their only loss since probably the end of December is to Mount Vernon. So they beat LN. I mean, I covered that game. They are really, really good. Handled a really good Guerin Catholic team last week. And then Brownstown is, I think a lot of people might be surprised to see them back here, because
I'm surprised.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of am too. They were a little bit off my radar just because you're like, well, Jack Benner graduates, but then you think about what they had coming back. Chase Coomer, 6'5" senior, Kobe Hall, 6'6" senior. Lane Pendleton has come in and done really well this year.
I really thought it would be Silver Creek.
Yeah, me too. And they beat them by 2, and beat Evansville Memorial last week. So, but Dave Benner, I think if you ask people, he's one of the best coaches in the state, and
no doubt
they're here for a reason too. So yeah, 24-2 against 25-3, and then Princeton and Addicts. Princeton's a cool story because they won 3 games 3 years ago, and basically been building with the same group since then. They have a good size with Edwin Holmes as a junior for them, and then Jace Jenkins is an outstanding shooter for Lamar Brown's team. Their only losses came to North Central and Lawrence Central, so they played some teams up here in 4A that I think helped them down the road. So, and then Addicts, of course, another team that was playing 4A basically the last 5 years. So they took out Cathedral, ranked number 1 in the sectional, and Desmond Briscoe, he's kind of the guy for them. But then, Chris Hurt's the city player of the year, and he's their point guard as a senior. Briscoe was hurt early on, so he didn't get to win it this year. But he's got 2 of those. So the last 3 city player of the year will be on their team Saturday. So pretty impressive.
Does a wonderful job.
Yeah, they really do. They they're always ready. There really is no weakness with their team. They shoot it well from the perimeter. They have a good size inside. I mean, to me, they're the favorite to win this, but they have a tough road. I mean, Princeton won't be easy, and then whoever they play in the night game, they might be a favorite, but it's not a huge favorite. So I think they're going to be in for a tough day. I did pick them to win and come out of this semi-state, but this is probably the most interesting grouping to me in the whole state on Saturday.
No doubt about it.
And who do you see coming out of the 3A North then?
I have South Bend St. Joe. I think is the best team there. They were there last year. They're going to have the experience. I picked Delta actually to beat East Chicago Central. I'm not sure if that's the right pick or not. I think I've seen East Chicago Central play, and that Dominic Murphy is very good, and whoever wins that game, I think, will give South Bend St. Joe a pretty good game. But I just think South Bend St. Joe's got too many weapons, and they score at a high level. Mechanical also scores a lot of points, but you're going to be playing the same style as a team that likes to play fast. So I don't know that that's going to work out. Maybe it will. Josiah Ball's an excellent player from Mechanical, but I think South Bend St. Joe is the best team in that grouping. But also Delta's coach Mark Detweiler, he's always they are always in this semi-state, so I don't put anything past him either. He's a really good coach as well.
We basically talked about Delta last week like they had no chance, and
yeah, we did. I didn't expect them to win. I didn't think that would be. Yeah, I was surprised when Delta won.
Yeah, me too. Fort Wayne Blackhawk, is also an excellent team. 3A is just so loaded this year. I mean, there's so many good teams, but yeah, a little bit of a surprise to see Delta. And Mark even said, hey, we're kind of more of a no-name team than ever, but he got them to play really well. And Bronson Edwards hit a big shot for him late, kind of a scoop shot over Kellen Pickett, who's 6'9", and they end up winning that game. So, if they can win that one, I think they can win another one at least.
And then our most of our interest has been in Class 2A, obviously. Our home is Elwood, Frankton, Tipton, Madison, Grand Alexandria area. So most of our interest is in 2A. And we still have a couple of teams from our periphery and in the Class 2A North semi-state. So going to be a lot of interest in that one.
Yeah, Wapahani's ranked number 1, but I'm a little curious. They struggled with Western Boone last week, which
they really did.
Western, that was a game where it looked like they might lose it, and then kind of came back at the end. So I don't know how that game's going to go with Gary 21st. Gary 21st is got a lot of talent. They play a lot of 4A teams. I'm not sure Wapahani can match up with them.
Yeah, if you beat Lures, you're awfully good.
Lures is very good, yeah. So that to me might have been the game to decide who goes to Cambridge, right. And when we look back at it. But, Manchester, Gavin Benton, one of the best players. I know, obviously you guys know them from the Tipton game last week, and, they're having a great season. And Jimtown's better, I think, than their record shows. They're undefeated against 2A competition. That's a program that's been 3A in the past. So,
yeah, going to the Gary 21st Century and the Wapahani game. So I think with Wapahani, I think if you're going to play defense against them, you kind of really want to run out at them and run them off the 3-point line. And then if you have a rim protector inside, you're going to be, I think, sitting in a good position because they like to. They'll they like to control tempo when they can, and they really like to set it up to get that wide open, uncontested 3.
Yeah, they do. They're going to be a team that they're going to have to shoot it at a high, and they do shoot it at a high rate. But especially in this game, to have a chance to advance, and to me, it's like I've watched Wapahani play a little bit and watched them in the sectional on video, and I'm just not sure they can completely match up with Gary's 24s in this game. But who knows? I mean, Coach Luce does a great job there, and they have the experience as well of being in these big games in the tournament. So I think they're you don't want to look past anytime a team's 26-1 and done everything they have done. I mean,
and ranked number one and still the underdog.
Yeah, right.
I will say, you talked about the Benton kid. I did a story on him and Grady Carpenter because they will be teammates at Grace, and they're also going to be roommates. But I was so impressed with the Benton kid, just how good he is at passing out of double and triple teams, and finding the third window. The best shot.
Yeah, and they have basically one other player, Ethan Hendricks is his name, and he's about 18 points a game as well.
Yeah,
so
good one. Yeah.
Yeah, so they have one other guy who can really score, and Talon Torpy, who should be on the all-name team.
He's
should. Also a good player for them. So.
Yes, he is. He's a difference maker because you want to double down on Benton, and then you want to make sure that Hendricks is covered. And Torpy just has a way of finding whether it's cutting to the basket or lining up for a 3-point shot. He's just got a way of being a factor.
Yeah, I mean that's the advantage of having a guy like Benton is he can, it's kind of like Luke Ertl in a different way too. Like people are going to be attracted to try to stop him. Then if your other guys can make shots, I mean that's if you're able to do that, you're gonna put other team in a bind. So that's the problem with trying to stop one guy. Is these good teams, they have other players who can burn you, and Manchester's been able to do that so far in the tournament.
And of course,
coming out of the South, 2A South, real quick.
2A South, I had. Let's see here. I'm scrolling. Oh, Park Heritage. I think they're a team that's been kind of veteran and tested, and they've been I guess it was 4 years ago that with a totally different team they made the state finals, but even in the years following, Rich Shelsky's had really good teams, and they're a team that's got 5 guys averaging double figures, which you just don't see that very often ever. So they did lose. Interesting thing, they did lose to Linton Stockton back in the Wabash Valley Classic in December, and that's who they could play at night.
Right.
So that would be an old school Southern Indiana battle there between those two teams if that happens. But that's a pretty good 4-team field. University
really
is a good team too.
Yep.
I've seen them play. They are capable of beating Linton, I think. And Forest Park has sort of been around as well a lot these past few years too. This team's a little bit of a surprise, but Drew Messmer does a great job coaching that team, and I think that group there at Washington, I think, is really good. That'll be a good day of basketball.
It really will. That's in fact on our prediction show. We all took 3 different teams, and then Richie Hall I was talking to, he said, I'll go ahead and take University so we can make it all 4 teams. So that kind of tells you how good that sectional is. And then, of course, we have a team in Liberty Christian, the only unranked team in the South there at Seymour, but they can win that too.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And they're another team, 8 losses, but I would venture to guess almost all those are against 4A and 3A teams.
Couple in Anderson, Brownsburg, yes.
Mm-hmm. And that'll be a huge contrast to styles. I've seen Clay City play a couple times. They're definitely a pace. If you watch Drake play last night, that's kind of what Clay City is without a shot clock. I mean, but they're not holding the ball, but they're very methodical,
patient,
and they know who they are. And I mean, there's something to be said for that. Liberty Christian does too, and that'll be a battle of wills. Who can kind of force the game to its pace.
You need to have multiple good ball handlers at times when you play Liberty Christian, because they're as good as any team I've ever seen. They don't do it the whole game, but when they really need to change pace or they're in trouble and they need to score, they just dial up such pressure that, they can score a lot of points in just a minute to 2 minutes.
Yeah, I wouldn't say Clay City. Having watched them twice, they're not like a outstanding ball handling team, but they do have a lot of guys who they can throw a lot of guys out there, in different situations. Bryce Wyram, he's more of the perimeter guy, but he has good size and he can handle the ball. And then where they really want to win is Ethan Edwards on the inside. He's their best player. They call him Dog, the junkyard dog type of player. But he's their top scorer and rebounder. He's about 15 and 9 per game, which is pretty high numbers considering the pace they play. And then, but yeah, Michael Tucker's another guy for them. But yeah, the question could be how do they handle that pressure, I think. And if they can get in a half-court game, I think they'll win. If Liberty Christian gets a full-court game, I think they'll win.
Thanks so much for your time, Kyle. Always appreciate it, and look forward to seeing what you have to report in the Indianapolis Star on Sunday. Should be a great day of basketball.
Me too, and I look forward to following you on Twitter or X, whatever, there, and your updates from Newcastle.
Absolutely. I would. One of those days you wish you could be multiple places.
Yep.
But it'll be fun.
Thank you so much to Kyle for spending some time on the Central Indiana Sports Report, talking some basketball with our listeners. And, of course, to Michelle. I say it every single time she's on the podcast, Susie. She's the best.
Absolutely.
And thank you for listening. Always appreciate it. If you'd like to see us continue to grow and thrive, please share these segments with your friends and family. Thank you, producer Susie.
Thank you, host Greg.
I got to say the little thing at the end.
Yeah, when are you going to say that?
It's my notes say at 31 minutes and 55 seconds.
Oh, that's very exact. And
It is. It is. And you got to follow the notes.
Yeah, you do. That's what they're there for.
That's what they're there for. 3, 2, 1.
Oh, the Central Indiana Sports Report is a product of ITG Media.
And I love Susie.